Janet gave up everything, her comfort, her dreams, and even her health, to sell ice cream on the streets just to help her twin sister Janice become a pilot. For many years, Janet worked day and night, enduring heartbreak, rejection, and even went to jail, all to give her twin sister a chance at the skies. But 8 years later, the unimaginable happened. In this true-to-life inspired story, watch how love, sacrifice, and faith turned two abandoned twins into national heroes. What Janice did after becoming successful, and what Janet discovered about her real identity, will move you to tears. This is how it all started. Janet and Janice Akando were like two flowers growing on the same stem. They were identical twins, 18 years old, and had just finished secondary school. People often got confused because they looked exactly alike, but their hearts were different in small ways. Janet was brave and strong, like a lion, and Janice was soft and gentle, like a butterfly. They lived with their father, Mr. Akando, in a quiet town filled with dusty roads and tiny shops, and neighbors who all knew one another. Everyone in town called them Akando's angels. Mr. Akando loved them more than anything in the world. He never remarried after his wife left. When the twins were just babies, he cooked, cleaned, took them to school, and even plaited their hair on Sundays. The twins believed he was their real father. They never doubted it, not for a second. One sunny Saturday morning, the girls came home to find Mr. Akando sitting on the veranda with a big smile. "My angels," he said softly. "How was the exam?" "Fine, Daddy," Janet said, sitting beside him. "Math was hard, but Janice helped me." Janice nodded. "We both passed, I'm sure of it." Mr. Akando hugged them tight. "Good, my smart girls." Later that evening, he made their favorite meal, jollof rice and grilled chicken. They ate together, laughed, and watched old family videos on the television. Mr. Akando looked tired, but he smiled through it all. That night, after the girls went to bed, he quietly went to his room. He lay down, closed his eyes, and never woke up again. The next morning, the house was silent. The sun was bright, but something felt wrong. Janet knocked on his door. "Daddy, breakfast?" No answer. She opened the door and screamed, "Janice, come quick." Janice ran in and saw Mr. Akando lying still on the bed. His face looked peaceful, but he wasn't breathing. "No, Daddy, wake up, please." They shook him, cried, and called neighbors for help, but it was too late. Their world broken to pieces that day. As the funeral was being arranged, an old woman named Mama Pat came from the village. She was a distant cousin of Mr. Akando. She looked kindly at the twins, but also seemed nervous. After the burial, she called them aside. "My children," she said quietly, "there's something you must know." The twins stared at her, confused. "What is it, Mama Pat?" She looked away, tears filling her eyes. "Mr. Akando was not your real father?" Janet and Janice stared at Mama Pat. Her words felt like thunder in their ears. "What do you mean?" "He's not our real father," Janice asked, her voice trembling. Mama Pat sighed and sat down on the edge of the porch. Her hands shook as she held her wrapper tight around her waist. "I have kept this secret for many years. I was afraid of what it would do to you girls. But now, after his passing, you must know the truth." Janet felt her chest tighten. "Tell us everything, Mama." The old woman took a deep breath and began. "Many years ago, when you were just newborns, your real mother, God rest her soul, was not well in the head. She gave birth by the roadside, all alone. She was very sick, and she died shortly after bringing you into this world. No one knew who your father was." The twins listened in silence, their eyes wide and full of tears. "Mr. Akando found you lying there, two tiny babies crying in the dust. He picked you up and brought you home. At that time, he was still married, but his wife, she hated you both," she said. "It's either them or me. And do you know what he did?" Janet's lips quivered. "He chose us." Mama Pat nodded slowly. "Yes, he chose you. He loved you from that moment and never looked back. His wife packed her things and left him. He never complained, never blamed you. He gave up his own happiness so that you too could have a life. Janice burst into tears. He raised us like we were his own. Because to him you were Mama, Pat whispered. He was the only father you ever knew, and he loved you more than anything. Jeannette, Prangdi, and Janice held each other tightly. It was too much. The man who had sacrificed everything for them wasn't even their real father by blood. But in every way that mattered, he had been more than that. Why didn't he tell us? Janet asked through sobs. He wanted to protect you, Mama, Pat replied, and he did until the very end. The girls cried until their eyes were swollen. That night, they lay in bed, holding hands too broken to sleep. The truth had come like a storm, washing away everything they thought they knew. But there was more pain to come. 3 months later, just as they were beginning to find peace again, tragedy struck once more. Mama Pat, their only remaining guardian, suddenly fell sick. Mama Pat had become like a soft pillow in the storm. After Mr. Akando's death, she stayed with Janet and Janice, cooking for them, telling them stories, and praying with them every night. Even though the truth had hurt so much, her kind smile helped the girls feel safe again. But that peace didn't last long. One rainy morning, Mama Pat couldn't get out of bed. Her breathing was slow, her voice was weak. Just a little cold, she whispered when Janet asked if she was okay. Nothing to worry about. But Janet wasn't convinced. She and Janice rushed to the nearest clinic. The doctor examined Mama Pat and frowned. She's very sick, he said gently. We will try our best. For 4 days, the twins stayed by her side, holding her hands and feeding her soup. They whispered prayers into her ears. But Mama Pat didn't get better. One evening, the doctor came into the room, shaking his head. I'm sorry, he said. She's gone. Gone. That word again. The same word they had heard when Mr. Akando died. It felt like a heavy rock pressing on their hearts. Janet fell to the floor and cried out. Janice stood frozen, too shocked to move. They buried Mama Pat next to Mr. Akando. 2 graves, 2 people who had loved them, 2 people are now gone. After the funeral, relatives came to eat, cry fake tears, and then leave. No one asked how the girls would survive. No one offered to help, except for one man, Papa Kalata. He was the oldest member of Mr. Akando's family. He wore long white robes and always carried a walking stick. At first, he acted kind. He told them, "Don't worry, I will take care of you." But his eyes were cold. One night, he called the girls to the living room. "You two," he said, pointing his stick at them. "You brought death into this house. First your fake father, then Mama Pat, you are witches." The girls gasped. "No, that's not true." Papa Talata banged his stick on the floor. "Silence. I want you both out of this house." Jeanette dropped to her knees. "Please, at least let Janice stay. I'll find work in the city and send money for her education. She wants to become a pilot." Papa Talata laughed, his eyes full of mockery. "BSc Aviation, my foot. Poor twins becoming pilots. You must be mad." The words cut like knives. That very night he gave them a box each and said, "Pack your things. You're leaving at sunrise." The sun was not yet up when Papa Talata shouted, out of my house before I called the police." Janet and Janice stood at the gate with their bags in hand. Their clothes were few. Their money was almost nothing. No home, no family left. Just the 2 of them and the road ahead. They walked slowly along the dusty path, not knowing where to go. Janice sniffled. "What do we do now?" Janet looked ahead, eyes full of quiet fire. "We keep going." They found a bench near the roadside and sat down. People walked past them, some looking curious, others ignoring them. Cars zoomed by. The wind blew softly, but everything still felt heavy. Janice wiped her tears. "Maybe we should go to an orphanage." "No," Janet said quickly. "We're not orphans. Mr. Akando was our father. He raised us with love. We are not alone." "Then what do we do?" Janice whispered. Janet knelt on the roadside, right there on the gravel and dust. She didn't care who was watching. She folded her hands and closed her eyes. Janice knelt beside her. Together, they whispered, God Almighty, now we are helpless. We have no one to turn to. Please don't leave us. Be with us now and forever. Amen. A gentle breeze passed over them. The world didn't change instantly, but something inside their hearts felt a little stronger. After a while, they stood up and began to walk. Janet spoke calmly. We'll go to the city. I'll find work. You'll go to school. No, Janice said, shaking her head. Let me work too. I can forget about school maybe later. Don't say that, Janet interrupted. Her voice was firm but kind. You will become a pilot. You dreamed of flying since you were a child. Even Jesus gave up his comfort to save others. Mr. Okando gave up everything for us now. It's my turn. Janice's eyes filled with tears. But what about your dream of starting a business? I'll wait, Janet said. My dream can sleep a little while. Yours must fly. Janice cried harder, now resting her head on Janet's shoulder. You're not just my sister. You're my mother, my father, and my hero. The sky was turning gold as morning arrived. And so, with nothing but faith in each other, they began their journey toward the city, toward the unknown. The city was louder than anything the twins had ever known. The horns blared, and people shouted. Cars rushed past. Like rivers of metal, tall buildings stood like giants blocking out the sky. Janet and Janice stepped off the bus with a small bag, the big dreams, and no place to sleep. That night they stayed near a busy roadside canteen. The owner, a kind woman named Auntie Bimbo, let them sleep on the wooden bench behind the shop. The next morning, Janet woke up early. I'm going to look for work, she said. Wait. Janice sat up, rubbing her eyes. Let me come with you. No. You stay and rest. We'll take turns. I'll look today, you tomorrow. Janet walked all over the market and asked every shop owner, please, do you need a cleaner or helper? But the answer was always the same. No vacancy. Come back next week. We're not hiring. She didn't give up. By evening, her legs were sore, her stomach empty. But finally, a woman who sold tomatoes said, you can wash baskets and sweep my stall. I'll pay you 500 naira a day. Janet smiled with relief. Thank you, ma. The job was hard. Her hands got red and rough. But every coin she earned was a step closer to Janice's future. Janice also found work the next week. She cleaned tables at a food joint and fetched water for an old tailor. Together the twins worked from morning till night. They shared one meal a day, saved every penny, and whispered prayers before sleep. One evening, Janice looked at their savings and cried, We're almost there. I can apply to aviation school soon. Yane hugged her. I told you nothing is too hard if God walks with us. But their hard work came with sacrifices. Yana began losing weight. Her skin got darker under the hot sun. Janice noticed how tired her sister looked. You should rest, Janice said one night. You do too much. I'm fine, Janet replied, though her body ached. After 3 long months, they had just enough money to pay Janice's first school fees. On the night before she left for school, Janet gave her a small bag packed with books, shoes, and a simple phone. Put God first, she said softly. Avoid envy. Follow your dreams. Janice wiped her tears. How will you cope without me? Jeanette smiled. I'll sell ice cream. I'll make sure you don't lack anything. But deep inside, she knew her real test was just beginning. The house felt too quiet without Janice. For the first few days, Janet stared at her empty bed, wishing she could hear her soft breathing or late-night laughter. But there was no time for missing her. There were bills to pay and dreams to protect. Janet began selling ice cream from a cooler she borrowed from Auntie Bimbo. Cold ice cream. Only 100 naira, she shouted as she walked the streets under the burning sun. Some days, she sold everything. Other days, she sold nothing. But she never stopped. When ice cream sales weren't enough, she started washing cars on weekends. Girl, this job is for boys, one man laughed. I don't care, Janet replied. Money doesn't care who earns it. Her fingers grew rough, her back hurt, but every night she sent a small amount to Janice with a message to keep going. I'm proud of you. Janice didn't know how hard things were getting. She studied hard, stayed up late, learning about planes, engines, and skies, all because of the sacrifices her sister was making. One afternoon, Janice called, her voice shaking. School fees have increased. I have just 1 month left to pay, or I'll be sent out. Janet stared at her nearly empty wallet. Her eyes burned. I'll get the money, she said quickly. But how you've already done so much. Don't worry, just focus on your books. That night, Janet lay awake, her mind spinning. The next day, she heard a woman at the car wash whisper, they need housemaids in the big man's house across town. Good pay? Janet followed the directions and knocked on a large gate. The guard looked her over and laughed. You want to work here? Please, she said, I'll do anything. She was led to the door where a tall, sharp-eyed man opened it. I'm Mr. Apiatus, he said. You'll clean, cook, and keep quiet, that's all. Janet nodded, yes, sir. The job was hard. The house was huge, and Mr. Apiatus was strict. But she pushed through. 3 months passed, and she waited patiently for her salary. Then one evening, Mr. Apiatus called her. You've done your job, he said, but if you want to be paid, you must do something for me. Janet frowned. What do you mean? He moved closer. Sleep with me and I'll pay double. Janet stepped back. Never, I'd rather go hungry. Mr. Apiatus's face turned cold. Then don't expect a kobo from me. Janet walked back to her tiny room, heart pounding. She had worked for 3 months for nothing. Janice's fees were due, and there was no time left. The next day, she did something she never thought she would do. Janet sat alone on the cold floor of her room. Her hands trembled, and her heart raced like a drum in her chest. She looked at the small bag where she had kept her hope empty now. 3 months of hard work, no pay, no help, no one to turn to. Janice's school fees were due in just a few days. If she missed the payment, she would be sent out. Everything they had worked for, everything they had prayed for, would be lost. Janet stared at the door to Mr. Apiatus's study. She thought of his cold face, the way he laughed when she said no. Her fists clenched. She couldn't go back to ice cream. It would take months to save that kind of money, and Janice didn't have months. Then a thought came, a dangerous one. She had seen where Mr. Apiatus kept his small safe. She had seen the password. When he forgot to hide it one morning, he always locked his study door. But that day he had left it open. Janice's chest felt tight. No, she whispered, that's stealing. But then she thought of Janice in her school uniform, standing proudly in a flight simulator. She thought of Mr. Akando, who gave up everything for them, and Mama Pat, who died loving them like a mother. I'm not doing this for me, she said softly. I'm doing it for her. That night, when Mr. Apiatus left for a business trip, Janet entered the study. She opened the drawer, entered the password, and the safe clicked. Inside were bundles of dollars. Her hands shook as she took out conical, upward paper, just enough to cover Janice's fees and, a little more, for food and rent. She placed the rest back, locked the safe, and wiped her fingerprints. She left the house the next morning and never returned. When she sent the money to Janice, she lied. I borrowed it from a friend. She texted, your dream is safe now. Janice sent back a voice note crying, thank you, Janet. You're the best sister in the world. But Janet couldn't smile. Her chest felt heavy. She didn't sleep well anymore. 3 days later, she was on her way to buy bread when a black car pulled up beside her. 4 policemen stepped out. Janet Akando? Yes, she replied. You're under arrest for theft from the house of Mr. Apiatus. Her legs gave way. The world went dark. Janet heard voices echoing around her, faint, distant. She's losing blood fast. We need a donor now. None of the staff matches her type. Keep her alive, she's just a child. Jeanette slowly opened her eyes. Everything was blurry. The ceiling above her was white, and the room smelled of antiseptic. Her arm had tubes. Her body felt weak, like she had been drained from the inside. A nurse noticed her eyes moving. She's awake. Janet blinked. Where am I? You're at Mercy General Hospital, the nurse said kindly. You collapsed in police custody. You lost a lot of blood, but you're lucky we found a donor. Donna, Janet asked weakly. Just then the door opened. Mr. Apietas stepped in. Janet's eyes widened. She tried to sit up, but the nurse stopped her. Don't worry, Mr. Apietas said quietly. I'm not here to hurt you. Janet looked away, ashamed. I know what you did, he continued. You stole from me. I had every right to leave you with the police, but when I saw you pass out, something told me to follow the ambulance. Janet's voice trembled. Why did you help me? Mr. Apietas walked closer and looked at her. His face no longer cold because the hospital said no one else could give you the blood. Only one person matched me. Janet stared at him, confused. We share the same rare blood type, he said slowly. That's not common. Jeanette's mind was spinning. Mr. Apietas sat down. I started thinking. You looked familiar from the first day. Your eyes, the way you move. I had a dream. Last night in the dream, someone kept saying, hey, she's your daughter. Your daughter. Janet's lips parted. What? I had a wife once, he said softly. She had mental issues. One day, she disappeared while pregnant. I searched everywhere but never found her. Janet froze. Tears filled her eyes. Mr. Apietas whispered, What if your mother was my wife? What if you are my daughter? The room fell silent. Then, he said the words that shook Janet's entire world. I want to do a DNA test. Janet sat on the hospital bed, too shocked to speak. Mr. Apietas' words kept echoing in her mind. What if you are my daughter? Could it be true? Was this the same man who refused to pay her salary and called the police on her, now saying he might be her real father? Janet's hands trembled. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Mr. Apietas looked down. I'm not proud of how I treated you. I judged you. I punished you. And if you really are my daughter, his voice cracked, then I failed you. A nurse walked in, breaking the silence. We've collected the samples for the DNA test. The results will be ready in 2 days. Jeanette nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. 2 days later, they returned to the hospital. Janet and Mr. Apietas sat side by side, silent. The doctor walked in, holding a brown envelope. He opened it slowly, then cleared his throat. Mr. Apietas, the results are clear. The DNA shows a 99.9% match that Janet is your biological daughter. The room went still. Mr. Apietas dropped his head into his hands and cried. Janet sat frozen. Janet, he sobbed. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I've been searching for your mother for years. I didn't even know she gave birth. I didn't know you existed. Janet stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. Mama Pat told us her mother gave birth by the roadside and died. She had mental issues. Mr. Akando found us and raised us as his own. Mr. Apietas looked up, eyes red. Then she was my wife. I never stopped loving her. I lost her, and I lost you too. Janet stood up slowly and walked to him. She placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm still angry, but I forgive you. He broke down again and held her tightly. I promise I will never leave you again. You and your sister, everything I own, I will share with you. Janet nodded. I don't want your money. I want you to know someone else already loved us like a real father. Mr. Akando. He gave up everything. Mr. Apietas nodded. Then we must honor him too. Just then Janet's phone buzzed. It was a video call from Janice. Janice shouted, smiling. Guess what? I passed my final test. I'm now officially a pilot. Janet smiled, tears falling. That's amazing. but her voice cracked. "There's something I need to tell you." Janice stared at her phone screen, confused. "Janet, what's wrong? Why are you crying?" Janice wiped her eyes and smiled gently. "They're happy tears, Janice." Janice sat up straighter in her chair, still wearing her pilot training uniform. Her eyes were wide with concern. "Tell me what happened." Janet took a deep breath. I found him." "Found who?" "Or biological father." Janice froze. "What?" Janet turned the camera toward Mr. Apietus, who was sitting quietly beside her. He looked nervous, his hands folded tightly. Janice blinked, confused. "Wait, Mr. Apietus, the man you worked for." "Yes," Janet said softly. "He's the one. He donated blood to save my life. Then we did a DNA test. It's true, Janice. He's our real father." Janice didn't speak. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Mr. Apietus leaned forward. "Janice, I know I don't deserve your trust. I treated Janet badly, and I regret every second of it, that I didn't know she was my daughter. I didn't know about either of you." Janice's voice cracked. "And now you want to be our father?" Hay nodded slowly. "Not to take the place of Mr. Akando, but to honor the truth, to protect you, to make up for the years I lost." Janet placed a hand on her chest. "Janice, he's different now. He's broken just like we were, but he's trying." Janice wiped a tear from her cheek. "I don't know how to feel. I'm happy. I'm angry. I miss Mr. Akando." "I know," Janet whispered. "Me too." There was a long pause before Janice spoke again. "Okay, we'll talk when I come home. But Janet, I want you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more lies. We face everything together like we always have." Janice smiled. "I promise." The next morning, Janice came home wearing her flight uniform. She ran into Janet's arms and cried like a little girl. Later that day, she met Mr. Apietus. They sat in the living room, awkward at first, but slowly warming up. He gave her a framed photo of her mother, his lost wife, and told her stories of their youth. Then Janice stood and said something unexpected. "I want to give my first salary to Janet. She gave up everything for me." Janet looked shocked. "No, you worked hard for this." Janice shook her head. "You were my mother, my father, my mentor. It's your turn to dream." And just like that, a new dream began to take shape. Janice stood in the middle of the small one-room apartment, holding the envelope Janice had handed her. Inside was her sister's first pilot salary. The money felt heavy in her hand, not because of its weight, but because of the love behind it. "I can't accept this," Janet whispered. But Janice shook her head. "You have to. You sold ice cream in the sun, washed cars in the dust, and even faced jail for me. This is yours." Janet sat down slowly, still staring at the envelope. "So what now?" Janice smiled. "Now you follow your dream." For the first time in years, Janet let herself imagine it. A small shop filled with colorful goods, customers laughing, children running in and out. A business of her own, a place of joy. The next week, she used part of the money to rent a tiny shop space near the market. She painted the walls bright yellow and called it Angel's Treats, a name to honor the nickname Mr. Akando gave them. She bought a small freezer, a display shelf, and her first set of products: sweets, soft drinks, snacks, and of course ice cream. Business started slow, but Janet had something no one could compete with: kindness, honesty, and a smile that made people feel welcome. Children came after school, workers passed by during lunch. Soon, people started saying, "Have you been to Angel's Treats? The owner is so sweet." One morning, Mr. Apietus visited the shop. He looked around in surprise. "You did all this on your own?" Janice smiled. "With God, Janice, and a lot of faith." Hay nodded. "You remind me of your mother. Strong, smart, brave." Then he handed her an envelope. "This is from me, a gift to help you grow." Janae opened it and gasped inside. Was a bank check for 5 million lira? "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," he said with a chuckle. Let me support you now like I should have years ago." She nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, sir." "No," he said softly. "Call me Dad." That evening, the family gathered around a dinner table. Janice, and Mr. Apiatus. They laughed, shared food, and remembered Mr. Akando and Mama Pat. Yane lifted a glass to the ones who loved us before the truth found us. Everyone clinked their cups together. But, just as everything seemed perfect, Mr. Apiatus cleared his throat. "There's something else. Something I must do before my time runs out." The room fell silent after Mr. Apiatus spoke. Janet and Janice both looked at him, eyes wide. "Before your time runs out," Janice asked gently, "are you sick?" Mr. Apiatus chuckled softly. No, I'm not sick, at least not yet, but I'm an old man. My daughters, and life has taught me never to leave things unfinished." He leaned forward, his voice more serious now. "I want to rewrite my will." Janet's eyes blinked in surprise. "Your will?" "Yes," he said firmly. "I have no other children. You and Janice are all I have. I want everything I worked for to go to both of you." "But we don't want your money," Janice said. Mr. Apiatus smiled. "It's not just about money, it's about doing what's right. You deserve security. You deserve peace." The next week, they sat at a lawyer's office. The lawyer, a thin man with large glasses, read the new will aloud. "I, Mr. Apiatus, declare Janet and Janice as my rightful heirs," he said. "My property's business shares and investments shall be equally divided between them. Upon my passing." The girls exchanged nervous glances. This still didn't feel real. After signing the documents, the lawyer handed each girl a copy of the will. "Congratulations. You're officially part of your father's legacy." Outside the office, Mr. Apiatus held both girls close. "I know I missed years of your life," he said, "but I hope this helps show how much I want to be here for the rest of it." Janet smiled, her heart warm. "It does, Dad." Back at home, they cooked a simple meal to celebrate jollof rice with fried plantains, just like Mr. Akando used to make. As they sat on the floor eating, Janice suddenly stood up. "I've been thinking." "About what?" Janet asked, chewing on the plantain. "I want to give my share of the inheritance to you." Janet dropped her spoon. "What? Why?" "Because," Janice said firmly, "you gave up everything so I could fly. Now it's my turn to lift you." Janet's eyes filled with tears. "But we've both come so far. We share everything." "Exactly," Janice said. "So we'll use the money together to start something bigger." Janet looked up like, "What?" Janice grinned. "The foundation in memory of Mr. Akando and our mother. A home for abandoned children just like us." Janice covered her mouth. "Janice, that's beautiful." Suddenly the lights flickered. The power went out. Janet laughed. Some things never change. But inside her heart, everything had. The next morning, the sun rose over the city like a warm pud from heaven. Janet sat by the window, sipping tea and watching the light paint golden lines across the street. Janice came out of her room in her pilot jacket, holding a sketch pad. "Guess what I drew last night?" she said, grinning. Janet smiled. "The plane." "No bay," Janice said, flipping the pad around this. On the page was a beautiful drawing of a big house with colorful flowers, a garden, and children playing. A sign above the gate read, "Akando's Home of Hope." Janet gasped softly. "Is this the foundation?" Janice nodded proudly. "A home for abandoned children, a place where no child will ever feel forgotten. We'll give them food, love, and education, just like Mr. Akando gave us." Tears filled Janet's eyes. "This is the best dream we've ever had." Over the next few weeks, they began planning. Mr. Apiatus used his business connections to help find land. Janet handled the designs, while Janice raised funds through aviation events and online campaigns. People were touched by their story. Newspapers ran the headline, "Twins rise from tragedy to build hope." Volunteers came. Builders offered discounts. Even children in schools donated pencils and storybooks. One afternoon, during a meeting with an architect, Janet looked around the office and said, "Do you feel that?" Janice paused. "Feel what?" Janet smiled. "Peace-like. We're walking in God's purpose." The foundation's construction began. They chose to build it near the town, where Mr. Akando had raised them, so his spirit would always be near. At the groundbreaking ceremony, a crowd gathered. There were balloons, songs, and laughter. Mr. Apietas gave a short speech, his voice shaking. "I lost my wife. I lost my daughters. But God in His mercy brought them back to me today. We build not with bricks alone, but with love and second chances." Janice stepped forward. "This home is not just for children. It's for every lost dream, every forgotten heart, every silent cry." Janet took the mic last, and it's in honor of two people who saved us, our mother, who gave us life, and Mr. Akundo, who gave us everything else. The crowd clapped and wiped tears. As the first shovel of dirt was lifted, the wind blew softly, like a whisper from heaven. But even as joy filled the air, a phone buzzed in Janet's pocket. She looked down at the screen. It was a message from someone she never expected to hear from again. Janet's hand trembled as she held the phone. The message on the screen was short, but powerful. "I heard what you're doing. I need to speak with you, Papa Talata." Janet stared at the name, her heart pounding. Janice leaned over her shoulder. "Is that?" "Yes," Janet said softly. "Papa Talata. The man who called them witches. The man who threw them out with nothing. The man who laughed at their dreams." "What does he want now?" Janice asked, frowning. Janet sat quietly thinking. "I don't know, but maybe we should find out." The next day, they traveled back to their old town. The roads were still dusty, the market still noisy, but everything felt different now. Janet no longer felt small or helpless. They knocked on the wooden door of Papa Talata's house. The old man opened it slowly. His eyes had lost their sharpness. His hands trembled as he leaned on his walking stick. "Janet, Janet," he said in a low voice, "come in." They sat on the same chairs they had once begged on. "I saw you on TV," he began. "The home you're building, the children, the speeches, and I cried." The twins said nothing. They just listened. "I judged you," he admitted. "I believed lies. I spoke curses when I should have spoken blessings. I was wrong." His voice broke. "I'm old, my sons. Don't visit my house is quiet. But when I see what you're doing, I see God's hand." Janet blinked back tears. She wasn't expecting this. "I've called you here to ask for forgiveness, Papa," Talata said, kneeling slowly on the floor. "Please, I have no peace." Janice rushed to help him up. "Papa, don't kneel." Janet stood beside him. "We forgive you, not just for you, but for us. Holding pain makes the heart heavy. We let it go." Papa Talata wept, holding both their hands. As they left, the air felt lighter. The weight of the past had been lifted. Back in the city, the final touches were being added to Akando's home of hope. Colorful curtains, soft mattresses, and books filled the rooms. Laughter echoed through the halls as the first children arrived. That evening, Janice and Janice stood on the rooftop of the building they had built with their pain, love, and faith. "You think he'd be proud?" Janice asked. Yane looked at the stars. "Mr. Akando? He's smiling right now. I can feel it." They hugged each other tightly. But as they turned to go downstairs, a car pulled up in front of the building. A reporter stepped out with a camera crew. "We'd like to tell your story to the world," she said. "Are you ready?" Janet smiled. "Yes, we're just getting started." The camera crew set up their equipment. Outside Akando's home of hope, children peeked through the windows, giggling and pointing. Volunteers gathered around, and neighbors stood by, curious and excited. The reporter adjusted her mic and smiled at the twins. Janice, say ready?" Janet and Janice looked at each other. Their fingers gently touched as if to say, "We've come so far." Then Janet nodded. "We're ready." The cameras rolled, and the reporter began. "Today, we bring you the story of two sisters who were once called witches, abandoned and left with nothing but hope. Today they are changing lives." The video captured it all. Asaua, the bright rooms inside the home, the children playing outside, and a simple plaque at the entrance that read, "In loving memory of Mr. Akando and Mama Evelyn." Janet stood in front of the building, looking proud but humble. "We built this place to give children what we were, given a second chance," she said. Janice added, "Mr. Akando may not have been our biological father, but he was the definition of true love. He taught us that family is more than blood." After the interview, the video went viral. Donations poured in. The foundation grew. Within a year, Bakando's Home of Hope had 3 branches across the country. Janet ran the foundation full-time, and Janice continued flying. Ours, not just planes, but also hope, as she traveled to speak at schools, churches, and conferences. One day, Janice flew in a private jet for a wealthy company. It's the same company where she was once laughed at for a while, even dreaming. She stepped into the cockpit, proud and confident. Pilot Janice Akando, ready for takeoff. Meanwhile, Janet stood before a class of young girls in the Foundation's new entrepreneurship center. "Who wants to own a business one day?" she asked. Little hands flew up. Janet smiled. "Then remember this, SAA, your past doesn't decide your future. Faith, love, and hard work will carry you further than fear ever will." That night at home, the twins sat on their balcony watching the stars. "Do you miss him?" Janice asked softly. "Every day," Janet replied, "but I see him in you, in these children, in every smile." Janice leaned her head on her sister's shoulder. "You were my wings, you know." "And you," Janet said, smiling, "were my sky." They watched as a plane flew across the night sky, tall, bright, strong, and free. Just like their legacy.